Welcome to the Student of the Game podcast, where I sit down with successful entrepreneurs to extract the knowledge you need to increase your income and avoid simple mistakes. You learn from their failures so you don't have to go through the same thing. I hope that you find one thing that can change your life in this episode. Thank you for listening.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. This is Tim Stone. I'm here with our special guest today, Dirk Velde. Dirk, thank you for being here. You build apartments, which is super exciting to me. I want to learn how to build apartments. So I appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Really glad to be here.
Well, where are you located again? You're in Oregon?
Yeah, we're Bend, Oregon. Beautiful Bend, Oregon.
Bend, Oregon. Okay. And you build mid-sized multifamily, which is what I really like to buy. So I'm curious how you got into that.
Yeah, so, just taking you back into just personal history. So, grew up in the Netherlands. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was a professional golfer. And then my dad...
Pro golfer?
Pro golfer.
Okay.
So
Is someone we might know of?
His name's Chris Vanderveld.
Okay.
He had a really good career. Yeah, he had a stint there where he was the best player in the Netherlands for a couple years. So, he's a huge dreamer. Like, I had to have him as a role model was a huge thing, right? He didn't start golf until he was 19.
And he went pro.
Yeah, he decided to go pro. The fanatic, right? A big dreamer.
I didn't start golf until 19, and I shoot 118 on average. So
you and I are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a huge dreamer. So I grew up with, my mom being a school teacher and him being a professional golfer. And then one day their dream was to build a resort, to run a golf course. That was really one of his dreams. So we moved over to Bend, Oregon, Central Oregon. We were living in Sisters in 2005, and step by step they ended up building a resort, became the #1 resort in Oregon. And so I was hugely blessed to be able to see, a school teacher and a professional golfer go after these huge dreams, what it takes to execute on those dreams, and then bring them to life. So that was really my foot in the door into the real estate game. It gave me a built-in infrastructure to be able to see what it takes to develop. And about 2 years ago we decided to start our own company. Boom.
So did you grow up kind of helping them run the resort, or how old were you when that became a thing?
Yeah, so I grew up originally I thought I wanted to one day run the resort, right? It was like, hey, I'm going to do every single job here because one day I want to run the resort. So I did everything from rake the bunkers, wash the golf carts, do the dishes, run events. So I got to touch everything. I did pretty much every job we had here. And then as I grew up, my first passion was I wanted to be a professional soccer player. Had a decent soccer career. Played Division I soccer, but the reality of it was I was never good enough to make it to the big leagues. I was never going to play in the MLS or anywhere overseas. And so, then finished that career and had to start trying to figure out what to do next. Did come and work at Tethero for a little bit, which is the name of the resort, and just decided I wanted to do my own thing. I had bigger dreams than just Tethero. So,
yeah. So I had a little bit of a similar story. My parents had a vacation rental management company. So it wasn't a resort, but it was a bunch of cabins all in the same town that they managed for other people. And that was my thing. Is like I grew up in it. Like my mom managed all the housekeepers. I go with her, and we grew up cleaning houses and taking care of maintenance stuff. So I always thought I was just going to take over the business one day, and then didn't. My dad ended up selling the company. But yeah, very, very similar story. That's what got me interested in real estate, was just seeing that. And then as he grew the business, he was able to buy some properties, short-term rentals, that completely changed his life, more than doubled his income on his first deal. Yeah. So that being the right age was kind of why I asked that question, because I was about 14, 15 when the investing part actually started to happen and change our lives. So I was old enough to understand it, be interested in it, and kind of observe what was going on there. But that's cool. So pursued soccer and ended up, realizing that you're going to have to go a different way. And then what did you do before you started this company? Or did you go straight into starting this company?
Yeah, no. So before that, I was just trying to accumulate as much knowledge as possible, right? I knew I always wanted to start my own thing. I have an entrepreneur mindset. It's really hard for me to, it sounds bad, but I don't like to be told what to do. I've always wanted to create my own thing. And so, I went and just tried to get as much experience as I could. Right out of college, I moved over to Connecticut. I worked for a startup there. It was actually in weight loss, just what really wasn't my thing. really wasn't my thing. Was in Connecticut, really liked it, but realized, hey, I want to come back to Bend, Oregon, get my foot in the door in the real estate game, and then just work my way up. So I gained a lot of experience working on projects. Then I went and worked for my aunt and uncle, gained a lot more experience there. And then it was really when my first son was born that I had a big perspective change. I was like, hey, I really need to try to create something for my family, right? That was really the perspective change that
Mm,
pushed me to say, hey, what kind of company could I actually create? And then I just took the skills that we had been compiling, right? The experience that we had compiled, which was really in the construction side of the business, and decided to pull the trigger.
gotcha. So your aunt and uncle, they had a construction company?
Yeah,
Yep.
they're also in real estate, so they had a construction and property management company as well.
Okay.
So,
So you
yep.
got some experience there. I
Oh,
was having a conversation with someone else on my podcast about, every entrepreneur, when you ask them what their why is, it's always, my family or my kids, and that's super important. But I don't have any kids, and it's like, what changed right when you have a kid? Because it's like, I say that like one of the things is I want to leave generational wealth to my family, a family well equipped to make good use of it. But I don't have any kids. So how much more real does it come once you do have a kid? What changed?
yeah, there's this undescribable love that just shows up. It's really difficult to describe. Once you do have a kid, you'll understand. You'll be like, oh, it's like an aha moment, right? Where
Mhm.
all it's this instant perspective change where you feel this crazy, insane, unfelt love for the future. And then all of a sudden now, rather than being just in your own mindset, right, where all you have to do is think about yourself and maybe your girlfriend or your wife, now all of a sudden you just start thinking about, okay, how do I actually plan a future for somebody like this, right? I wanted, like, it starts with the basic needs, bring food bring food and shelter to the table, and then
Mhm.
it evolves to, okay, how do I create something that maybe one day these boys, because now I have two boys, these boys
Mm.
could enjoy themselves, right? They don't have to, but I do want to be able to give them an opportunity, give them a platform and a company that they could one day grow into. So I would say it's, to answer the question directly, it's a massive perspective change. You also all of a sudden understand your parents way more.
Mhm.
It's a really big milestone in life if you do have the blessing of having a child. So you're gonna see it. I don't know if you want kids, but if you do, you will. You'll be like, oh, boom, that's an. It's really hard to describe, but you can feel it. It's a feeling.
Yeah, it's almost like the clock is ticking now.
The
Like
plastic.
like it's the idea of having a family too. Well, now I have a family and 18 years is gonna go by quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember, like, I don't know if you went to college or not, but everyone in I
For a
went
little bit.
yeah, I played soccer in college, and everyone's like, freshman year, everyone's like, hey, enjoy it. It's going to go by quick. I was like, what are you guys talking about? I got 4 years. You guys are crazy. 4 years. And then as soon as it does end, you're like, whoa, that was quick. So yeah, it's definitely a ticking time bomb is what it feels like.
Mhm. So, what I'm curious about, because I have only ever dealt with existing multifamily, is construction.
Yeah.
What's the process? Like, you just find a piece of dirt? Like, how do you even find a property that you're gonna develop? Are you developing other people's projects, or you find your own, build it and sell it to someone, or like what's the strategy?
Yeah, so we've got two buckets really. We've got an operating business which acts as a general contractor. We both build for others and we build for ourselves. So we find a piece of land, build for ourselves, and just to create more income, more cash flow, we also go and build for others because we've got a good infrastructure. We've got 7 employees in that business now, and it's a good operating business that allows us
Mhm.
to build for the bigger picture, which is to build assets for the family, right? That's the bigger picture. That's the goal. That's what we're going after. And to really, from a development side, right? It's like anything, you just have to learn the blueprint, right? Construction. The good thing about construction is it's a step by step process, and you don't have to go and learn about each trade. You don't need to be an expert in excavation and concrete or framing, right? Because the guys that you're going to hire, the subcontractors, they're the experts there. So all you have to do
Mm.
is learn the blueprint of the business side of building, right? What are the numbers? How do you unlock a piece of land, right? How do you see the potential in a piece of land that others may not see? And that comes from learning the zoning and the code. There's a development code in every city. And if you learn the zoning and the code and you can see what other people can't see yet, then you can really unlock it. So I think that the construction side, it's a step-by-step thing. Like anything, you need to put really good frameworks in place and standard operating procedures to execute on that business. And I think where we make a lot of our money and where my time is best spent is going out and finding the deals and putting those together. So, and
Yeah.
that's best done by brokers. I mean, through and through. Best done is, like, real estate is a relationship game. I'm sure your deals, how you
Mhm.
found them, it's all based on the relationships you had. Same thing for land. Same
Yeah,
thing.
almost 100% based on just relationships. So you're like the general contractor and kind of put together the subs. Do you have someone that does it for you, or you? I'm sure that, like I've heard and I've also dealt with it myself just on renovations, you can pretty quickly go through some bad subs on some projects. So
Yeah.
how did you find really good ones? Or are you still kind of, going through them, or do you have a solid team now?
Yeah, we, like anything, right? We cycle through them. Even with our employees, that happened too, right? Our first round of employees, and it's always in the mirror, right? It's always like it's
Mhm.
easy to point fingers, but I wasn't good enough yet at identifying exactly what we needed and the talent we needed. So we cycled through the first round of employees. We're cycling through the those subs as well, and now we've
Mhm.
got a really, really strong core. I was able to. We're really blessed to be able to bring on some people who are super talented, who've been in the industry for 25, 30 years, and they also have then all the relationships, right, with all the subcontractors as well. Our lead superintendent, his name's Aaron Stainer. He is just a rock star. He came onto the team, and anyone that wasn't at the standard of quality we needed, they are gone. And he's just
Mm.
brought in a really, really core, solid group of guys. Our next challenge is, we have a really strong core now of subcontractors. Our next challenge is, as we scale and create more projects, we need to deepen that roster. So that's what we're
Mm.
working on. Yeah.
And are you going to be building in other cities, or you kind of just want to stay in one city? Because you mentioned how important it is to know the code and everything, and that's a lot of stuff to learn. And it's just, you go 10 miles one direction, it all changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's the plan there?
Yeah, so we're building in 5 different cities in Oregon. We're able to do that. I feel good about it. But the goal our dream is to go and be in other states. But what we'll do is we'll do that from the development side, meaning we get a piece of land, we bring in the investors, the debt, the banking, the architects, the engineers, and the general contractor who's an expert in that area. So we'll just do it on that side instead of try and go scale the general contracting business, having to go get a contracting license in Idaho and in Washington. We'll really scale the development
Yeah.
side of things. So that's what we'll do. And then in Oregon, we'll just start to dominate, and we'll become the best mid-sized multifamily builder in Oregon.
Yeah. So because you have the tools in Oregon, you're the team that's building it. But say you want to do a deal in Dallas, Texas, you would just put together the vision and the investment and have someone else build it.
Yep. Yeah, we would be the development representative, and just hire a third party GC, which, quite honestly, from a scale side, is a way
Yeah.
better strategy anyways, because it's way less liability, and it's a better strategy for scale.
Okay. So why do you see you should be building them instead of just buying existing? 'Cause that's what I've done. I don't have to learn any of this stuff. Just look at the numbers, buy it. Maybe do some renovations, increase the income. Why would you build it right now?
Yeah, there's a couple reasons. One, it's there's forced equity from the beginning, right? So where maybe if you buy an existing building, you've got to go in and you do have to do the reno. So you're still in the construction
Mhm.
game, right? You have to go and do the renos to get that forced equity, that equity creation. With the ground up game, there's a lot of built in equity if you do it right. So you can go and do a project, right? Let's say it costs you, on a small scale, not multifamily, but on a just a single family house that we sell. Let's say it costs us all in build and land $250,000. We can sell that for $360,000. So there's that $110,000 built in equity. That same thing translates over to the multifamily world. You can go and do a project. It can cost you 19 million and it can be appraised for 23 million. Right away, you've built $4 million of equity into the deal, rather than have to go and either buy and hold for 3 to 5 years, right? Or do some sort of rent growth on it. So there's a lot of potential for built-in equity. Now there is a huge risk factor as well, right?
Mhm.
Because you're speculating when you buy existing stuff. The nice thing is you have a trailing 12. You know what's
Right.
happening. You
You
can
can do
see what's
inspections.
yeah,
Yeah.
versus in the ground up game, you have to really make sure you have an expert that can do pro formas that are actually going to make sense, right? And so that's probably the biggest risk of the ground up game, is making sure that the numbers that you're projecting are conservative and that you can actually hit them and make them happen.
Yeah, and you kind of just come up with those numbers based off comparable construction that's been in the area.
Yeah, exactly. So there's three major components to that, right? It's one, the construction cost. We do it in the areas, so
Mhm.
we
Yeah,
nobody
you're in the industry. You know it's normal.
nobody can mess with us, right? We know it's normal. We can create a budget that's extremely conservative. We put contingencies in place, and we plan for the worst, right? We always plan for the worst case scenario, and we run our numbers off worst case scenario. Then the next one is the debt, right? The debt structure is really important and is actually getting a lot of a lot of developers in trouble right now. I've been hearing some stories where they're trying to raise more capital now because they started their project took maybe 6 months longer than they expected, and they didn't think that debt was going to be at 6%, right? When they underwrote it, they didn't think permanent debt was going to be at 6-7% or high 5%. And so they're now running into some issues. There's ways to mitigate that. What we did is we just fixed our debt up front. So we just did construction
people were building with variable rates.
yeah. Well,
Okay.
oh yeah, people are doing
Okay.
they're doing a construction loan, and then what they're expecting. So they're doing a construction loan, interest only, and then they're not actually locking in their permanent debt until they get
the project's built.
Occupied, because what they're trying to do is refinance out of that construction loan and do a cash out refinance. But the problem that they're now having is, one, the project's maybe taking a little bit longer, but two, the debt. Once you double the debt, right, 3 to 6%, like everyone says, oh, 6%'s not that much when you look at it historically. Sure, that's
but if
true.
you plan for 3,
It's
it's
but
double.
it's double the debt if if you plan for 3, or even if you thought you were being conservative and planned for 5, now you're at 6. It just starts killing your cash flow. And then I think what's happening to a lot of them is you're getting your debt coverage service ratio is just getting crushed, because now your debt just costs more. And so that's where you're seeing, I've been hearing a lot of people trying to come back, syndicators trying to come back and raise more equity to make the project work. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because going from 5 to 6% sounds like a 1% increase, but if you're looking at it, it's really a 20% increase. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you look at why the interest rate is the way it is.
Yeah. And then just to close this, because I said there was 3 points, the third one that you're really needing to predict is rents. The good thing about being in the multifamily ground up game, predicting rents are typically a lot more sticky.
Yeah.
So you can go and, as you can go and run comps. And unlike a house, if you're in a neighborhood and somebody decides to fire sale a house, well, now my comps, they go off the last 6 months. So my comps can drop quickly without my control. With rents, unless there's a massive oversupply, they're pretty darn sticky. People are signing a 6 to 12 month lease, and so you can predict them a little bit better than for sale stuff.
Right. And at least for now, there's not enough supply. So it's not going to move as quickly in the rental market.
That's one of the big discussions happening here in Bend, Oregon, right? And in the surrounding areas is, when do we hit an oversupply? We saw a massive flip of production. If you looked at the past 10 years, typically 75% of new construction was single family, 25 was multifamily. That completely flipped. So now we've got 75% multifamily being built and 25% single family. So we'll see when do we hit that market, the market supply demand game. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. What do you think is going to happen with them adding that much multifamily? And I see that happening in a lot of markets, but also I see that there's millions of people moving to a bunch of these cities, and there's not enough houses.
Yeah, I mean, you said it's spot on, right? So what do you think is going to happen? Well, you look at the growth, and then you say, okay, do we think these growth rates are going to continue? Here in Bend, to do it simply, it's 100,000 people. It's a population of about 100,000 people, and we're growing. If you think about right now, we have 1,000 units, 1,000 multifamily units that are under construction. They'll be introduced to the market, and we're growing at much more than a 3% growth rate. 3% growth rate on 100,000 is 3,000 people, right?
Right.
So in theory, we're still undersupplied. Now we'll see if that happens. There's things that have happened in Bend in the past, like a little destination town. The problem is when the economy starts tanking, are the jobs there to support? And
Right.
that's the big
It
worry in these type of
is
towns.
is a lot of the industry tourism in Bend.
Yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
it's shifting now. We're getting some major companies coming in, and then the whole remote work thing is
Mm-hmm.
actually becoming a real thing here. But I still believe that you can't bank on remote work, because I still believe you're going to see in the next 2-3 years companies' productivity is going to go down. As much as people want to say whatever they want to say, I'm telling you, think about these two factors. Office is getting smashed right now. Go to any big city, retail and office is just getting smashed. So there's for lease signs all over the place. There's
Mm-hmm.
only one thing that can happen when office gets smashed. They're going to have to bring the price down. It's going to, their office prices are going to come way down. Well, guess what's good for offices? I believe productivity is getting smashed. You can say whatever you want to say, but I'm telling you, these CEOs of these companies in a year or two are going to be like, no more. You come back home. We get this cheap office rent here. So I don't think that world's going to exist forever. Am I wrong or right? I don't know, but I see
Yeah.
those factors being something that people need to think about, because I don't think remote work will always be around. I think productivity is going to get smashed and office space is going to be cheap. And so the two pair really well together for calling people back to the big cities and the offices.
Yeah, I think you're right for a lot of industries and probably much larger companies,
Mhm.
because some smaller companies have been able to scale a little more by
Yeah,
cutting out some of those costs. But the large companies, like they're gonna have to come back to office, and there's people like some really big players in the game that are buying a ton of office right now,
yeah,
because the people that own it, they have a situation, their note is coming due, they've got super low vacancy and they just need to get it off their books. So they're selling offices for nothing. And if you're right, and eventually these companies realize we need to head back into the offices, or some of the whatever happens with it, the guys that bought the offices for next to nothing just because they needed to dump, or because someone else needed to dump them, are
yeah.
gonna be really happy.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. I think you made a good point, right? Because there is the overhead cut.
Yeah,
Everyone,
I
right?
think a lot of companies are gonna stay,
Yeah.
but
But
it's going to bounce back from where it is, because it dropped to nothing and nobody was in the offices for a while.
exactly. I mean, and cutting overhead's a great thing, right? Like we're learning that right now is with fast growth, you have to watch your overhead. But I will tell you one thing, you're happy to cut your overhead until your productivity goes to, if your productivity starts like really declining, people are going to be like, what's the one factor here? It's because everyone's taking their dogs on 7 walks and
Mhm.
cheat coding the way that remote work works, right? That's like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just my prediction. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
It's definitely happening. So I was curious about how you're financing the deals when
Yes.
you're going to do a construction.
Yeah, so two buckets. We do for like our specs, so speculation builds, buy a piece of land, build a house, sell it. We buy the land in cash, and then we do hard money loan to build, just like you would do on a fix and flip. Typically,
Hmm.
you buy the land in cash, that's our collateral, and then we get a hard money loan to go vertical. And then on all the multifamily, we work with small regional banks,
Mm.
and it's like both loans that we have on the 84 and the 24 are over the 10-year treasury, some sort of spread that you get over the 10-year treasury, depending on, the relationship, the sponsor, and just the way the deal is underwritten, right? They'll tell you what spread you get over the 10-year treasury.
Okay. I'll have you explain that, but back to the first one. So you buy the land, or do they also make you put money down on the hard money, or will they finance 100% of construction?
100% of construction, because we
Mm.
collateralize that lot, right? So you buy the
Mhm.
lot clear, and then you're good to go. That the lot is really their collateral against the vertical construction.
Okay. And usually it's single family or something small for that.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I do it all on single family, and then I'm doing it on fourplex right now, actually, as
Okay.
well. So we'll see. I'll let you know how that one goes.
Yeah, I figured it might be pretty similar, 1 to 4 units,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then and anything else, small regional banks.
yeah. Small regional banks is what we're doing. I know that you can also do big, large banks, but small regional banks who are invested in the community and understand construction, those are the best ones to work with, right?
Right, especially where like the guy in charge, you can go see him.
Yeah,
If you're going through Bank America, like Bank of America, for example, you're not going to go talk to the guy in charge.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
never in a million years. But if it's some regional bank, like there's a credit union I've used for a couple deals. you could talk to the guy in charge, or at least the guy that knows the guy in charge, and
Makes a difference.
make something happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely makes a difference. So what kind of interest rate are they getting you on those deals?
Yeah, so we locked one in at 5.35%, locked in for 11 and a half years. So what we did on that is 18-month construction period, interest only, and then we did permanent debt already locked in, not having to lock in later. So we got that locked in at 5.35, and it's one of those things where you go, hey, we pro forma to 6%, right? And so it's, hey, we were very happy to be able to do that because we are, I always mess it up. We are under promising and overperforming on that situation, right? So if we lock in at 5.35%, that's great because the deal works for us at 6%.
At 6. Yeah. That sounds really good.
Yeah,
Sounds like you should do that deal all day.
Yeah, I mean, that deal was it was our first large deal that we put together, and we're feeling really blessed. It's going to be done with construction in October. From a budget side, we're on budget. We're under our timeline side. We were scheduled to finish in January of 2023. We're going to finish in October of 2023, or excuse me, of 2024. January of 2024. We're going to finish in October of 2023. So we're happy about that component. Now the last question mark is, what do we actually get for rents? We were massively conservative, and what our property manager thinks we're going to get, if we get those numbers, we'll be laughing, but it'll be, we'll see what the reality is in the next 3 months or so, 3 to 6 months. We'll understand what it is. So yeah, that the debt structure on that was 5.35%, and then the other deal.
When was that you locked that in?
That would have been March or May of 2022. So it sounds
gotcha.
Right in that range is what we'd have to double check that, but that's when I believe we locked that in. Right as things were starting to climb.
That's pretty decent timing.
Yeah, well, it would, if we were 2 months earlier, it would have been
better. You've been like 3.5.
Exactly. But we saw what was coming, right? And so what we did is, again, working with a small regional bank, they're tracking it for us, we're tracking, and we were just in like this 2-week period. We were just waiting for the Treasury, seeing the movements in the Treasury, and then boom, one day Treasury drops, and we moved quick, right? Because it was like, hey, we can lock this rate in. Okay, we're good. Lock it in. Boom, bang, good to go. And then the other one, we are at 5.8%, but we underwrote that deal at an 8% interest rate. Again, we were underwriting that as we saw things going south, right? And so then now we tighten up our we're even more conservative. We double it, and we want to be really careful about this deal. And so we underwrote that at 8%. We locked it in at 5.8%. So again, we're laughing, we're good to go, and we feel good about the debt on that one as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. How does the deal work at 8%? Like what had to be so good about it for it to make sense still at 8%?
I mean, we built it in house, so our cost per unit was really low. We're able to really pack some punches, and then our land costs into it were low, and so we were, from a unit side, right now those units they're getting appraised around 225, 250, and we're building them for like 178 a unit. So our ability to get into those units was just really low.
Yeah, just the cost per door. Okay.
Yeah.
And how many doors are on each of those deals you got going on right now?
84.
24. Okay. And which one was first? The 84 unit was first?
Yeah, 84 was first.
That's big for a first one.
I remember my wife and I were like, what's going on? Like, we had to like pinch ourselves at certain times, right? And so, but it's worked out really good. And, it's also one of those ones where once it's done, we'll be able to take the reality of it and the case study of it and use that to really go and as rocket fuel to the next level.
And are you wanting to keep that, or are you going to put it on the market and sell it? What's the strategy on this?
Asset accumulation game, right? That's why we're in the new construction side of things. We believe that if we can just continue to accumulate the assets, that's really our target and goal. Now, if somebody comes with a gangbuster offer,
right,
we'll always do
it. Take the money and build another one.
Yeah, but we have to work so hard also to build those, right? And so it's like, we're really happy with the asset. We believe that if we hold it for, if you look at, like, as you know, you hold that thing for 10 years, the potential benefits of what it's going to be worth in 10 years versus what we would get if we sold it today are just substantial. And again, we're long term believe that the US is going to become more and more of a renter's nation. So the more assets
Mm-hmm.
we accumulate, the happier we are. Plus, that's why we're in the new construction game, because that gives the lifetime of our build just so much longer.
Yeah,
Right.
it's going to decrease management expenses as once it's operating as a multifamily deal with property management, and you're trying to push the NOI, and that's where the valuation is going to come from. If everything's brand new, in
Yeah.
theory, a lot less things are going to break and have to be replaced.
In theory.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
theory,
You're probably not going to have to put a new roof on anytime soon if the
no,
roof was just built.
no. We
So,
got warranty stuff for that, which is good. And Uh, I'll tell you one thing I didn't stress test well in the pro formas that we'll see is I didn't expect insurance costs
yep.
to skyrocket as much as they did. I missed that. So, we'll see what happens there. But that's the one place I wasn't conservative enough. And I would say if you are going to get into the ground up game, be conservative in everything, but really pay attention to the things that might slip through. Like that slipped through in my mind, right? Insurance, I would see maybe we would think maybe 10% increase, but we didn't expect a 50. All right.
Right.
So it's big difference.
So what happened with the insurance over there? Because you're on the West Coast. On the East Coast, it's insane, especially the closer you are to the ocean. Just after all the hurricanes last year, I've heard stories of people's insurance tripling.
Yeah.
So obviously it had an effect pretty much worldwide on insurance from what I've heard. But what was it like over in Oregon?
Yeah, the Oregon's a lot of it's fire based, so everyone's worried about
Okay.
fires. Like if you look outside right now, even it looks like we're in a campfire. Literally every August, we just start getting smoked in. So we got a lot of forest fires that people are concerned about here. Obviously, at the Oregon coast, it would be the same. Right, you got the floodplains. We don't have hurricanes, so there's not an issue there. But I think that just in general, people's rates are going up because these insurance companies have been taking hits. So they're just raising the rates, right? Because if they get all these hits, they have to raise those rates. We're seeing it even on my personal house. We live up in the woods, and our insurance on that did double, literally doubled.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a big impact, right? If you're, especially when you're, when you're underwriting those deals, as you know, NOI is one of the most important things. So we're working right now on getting final quotes, and we'll see what it lands at. But I'm a little bit frustrated with myself about that one.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice for anyone. So would you recommend getting into the construction or just kind of buying something someone else is building brand new? Like, would you recommend, say I go build the team, get all the contracting license, everything, and start building my own? Or would you say just partner with someone and buy brand new?
It depends on the situation, right? So it's like, do you have a lot of cash and a lot of investors where you can go and buy brand new and you're not going to get that equity creation that we're talking about, right? Or do you have a passion for being able to, like seeing a piece of land and building something from the ground up? It is a blueprint, right? Like it's like learning anything. And so I would say if you're hungry and you're ambitious and you don't have a bunch of cash sitting around or the ability to raise a bunch of cash, that you can just go home and buy those existing assets, because there's a group of people who are buying those just chomping those up, right? So
yeah,
a
lot of people.
Yeah, so a lot of competition there. So for me, I'm like, okay, the skill set to go and get in the ground up. And you don't have to do the general contracting business. You could literally just be the developer, right? Which means bringing all the pieces of the puzzle together. That's what I would say. Unless you have a big passion for construction, I would say be the business person and the developer in it, right? Bring the architect, bring the engineer, learn the blueprint of seeing what you need to do on a piece of land, and bring the general contractor, because one, the fees are awesome in the development world, and the amount of work that you have to do versus what the general contractor has to do is substantially different.
So is it good timing for development? Because that's kind of what I've heard. If you take a piece of dirt and build something on it, it's probably going to be worth more than it was when it was dirt. So with things kind of being tricky in the real estate market, I've heard some opinions that development is good right now, especially if you can do a lot of it in cash, just because interest rates are crazy. People don't really know what's going to happen, but you take a piece of dirt, turn it into a nice building. It's hard to lose money on that. But what's your opinion on the timing of it?
As long as you have somebody that knows what they're doing, and you're not getting in over your head. Like if you're gonna go and pay too much for the land, you're screwed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down to making sure you have an expert on your team, or you become the expert. But for me, it's always a good time to buy real estate and build real estate, right? It
Mm-hmm.
just depends on the
Always
numbers.
good to buy and build.
Yeah, oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, buy land, yeah, buy and build, but yeah, buy
Yeah.
land. I'm in the ground up game. Like that's my main focus. I got one channel, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
say if an existing building came around and it was a gangbuster deal, that we wouldn't do it, but we're not looking for it, right?
Right.
This is my channel, and so I go like a mile deep in it, and I'm just trying to strike gold in the buy piece of land and build on it. That's really the strategy. So I think it's always a good time. It just depends, like what's the structure, how much cash are you putting in, what's the price of it, right? There's a lot of factors, but I think that there's a ton of potential in land. There will always be a ton of potential in land, and it's one of the scarce things in this world. So
Yeah. What do you look for in a piece of land to make sure it's going to be a good project?
location is big. One thing that people, when you're doing ground up, especially larger projects, sometimes you have to pave the way for a vision. So you're not going to go and get like,
Literally, like you might have to pave a road.
yeah, you have to pave a road. But it's not like if people are like location, location, location. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to be doing a new ground up project in the middle of downtown because it's all taken, right? So sometimes you have to understand your area really well and then think about where growth will happen. Some of the best guys I've studied, like the guys, there's a company here, they build about 1,500 homes in the Pacific Northwest a year. The father started the company, the sons came in and just blown it up. And one thing that these guys were doing, they were so smart, so smart. They knew that as Central Oregon was going to grow, that the city would have to, grow their urban growth boundary, and so they were buying land, farmland, or land just outside the city limits. They were buying land, right? And so the dad was doing it because I studied these guys who own all the land and whatnot. He was buying land back in like 1990, 1980 for there's one piece that he bought for like $25,000, and today his son is building a subdivision on it 30 years later because it got annexed into the city, right? And so
Mm.
you guys have now. Not everybody has the luxury of parking cash like that. A lot of
Yeah,
people.
40 years ago. Not everybody can go buy land 40 years ago, right?
No, yeah. So you have to work it, work it, work it. But guess what? The son, study who's doing the same thing now. He
Mhm.
is he is also buying land, 40-acre plots, 60-acre plots outside of the city limits, and just having it sit there. Again, it's a luxury because he's dropping quite a bit of cash and having
Mhm.
it sit there. But those guys have got the foresight and the vision. And so, as far as finding a piece of land, I think you need to be willing to pave the vision sometimes, and then it's all about going and learning your local. Think about your local zoning and local development code as your playbook, as the rules to the game in your area. If you understand the rules to the game better than other people, you're going to be able to unlock a piece of land better than other people. So that would be the two components I say.
Yeah. So the location super important and just the vision of it, but are these deals usually for sale on the market? Broker brings it to you, or do you find a piece of land and you're going to find out who owns it and convince them to sell it? Like what would you do to pick up a piece of land?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So the just talking about the two existing multifamily. Actually, start here. All the single family lots that we build on,
Mhm.
MLS baby, pure
All of
MLS.
them.
Yeah,
Are they mostly in neighborhoods or,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Infill.
in neighbor?
Those
Okay.
single family ones, like the ones that are just single family lots, they're usually infill lots in neighborhoods, right? So it's like a lot that nobody's built on, a lot that somebody's owned for a long time and now they need to create some cash, a lot that somebody just inherited. That's in existing neighborhoods. That's typically, if you're just going to do like onesie twosies, that's what you're going to find, right? Subdivisions is a different story when you buy a big piece of land and build a whole subdivision. But your onesie twosies, existing neighborhood, every single one we've bought. I'm trying to think if there's any. No, every single one we've bought has been just on the MLS, act quick because we know the numbers. And then,
Hmm. So
and then,
infill is just like I've heard the term, but I'm not familiar. Is that just it's in a neighborhood, undeveloped?
yeah, I think that like official term would be in like a downtown area. If you have like townhomes together, there's like an infill lot. I think that might be like the actual official term, but I call like infill would
Hmm.
be that you have there's a cul-de-sac, 7 houses, and a lot. There's a lot right there
Makes
that you
sense.
not attached or anything, but yeah, that's what we go with.
Yeah,
But
easy to
and,
underwrite. There's good comps.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, good.
6, 7 houses right there.
Yep. Yeah. And another one you can do is like we're buying 2 lots right now where we're buying them in a subdivision. A developer put a subdivision in, and then different builders come in, buy the lots and build. Same idea, right? Good comps. It's
Mm.
existing. It's run nicely. That works too. So it can be in a new subdivision that a developer is selling lots to. That works just as well. But then on the other 2 deals, one was an off market, so relationship game, right? It was one of my best friends. He's a great realtor, and this gentleman who bought the property, they go to church together, they started talking, rest is history, right? So, and then the other one was MLS, move quick. Saw the
Yeah.
property come listed, I knew the area, right? If you know the areas and the zoning, then you can go quick, boom boom, you can act quick on it. So got listed, and then we were able to very quickly, because we knew the area, take the team, hey, what can we fit on here? We can fit 24
Mm.
units, boom, bang, done.
Yeah, because that in my mind that's a very different game because say a quarter acre or half acre lot in a subdivision, it makes sense. But how many acres do you need to build 84 apartments? And what else could you build on it? Like your team is where that comes in.
Yeah,
It's
that's
it comes up
yeah,
on the MLS. You're like, what can we do here? Find the
exactly.
code. How many units?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Then so it's all densities, right? So different zoning has, you have like R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, residential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all density based, right? So the 84 units is on 3.5 acres. It's on the highest density that Redmond allows. We got 6 buildings, 4 4-story buildings, and 2 3-story buildings, and so we just max that thing out. From a density side of it, they go like units per acre. How many units can you do per acre?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other things that like
The parking, the
parking.
sewer, or yeah,
Yeah,
however
parking. Parking is one of the big ones that maybe hamstrings the property, because like you have to have, let's say you have to have in Redmond, you have to have 2 spots per unit plus 1 overflow, and so that's where you could get hamstrung. You can't always just max out what it says, right? So you can't just be like, oh, this is 3 acres, I can max out 21 units per acre. That's not usually the reality, because you have space for parking, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So yeah, just having the right team and the right connections for the bigger stuff, and then
yeah.
the smaller deals, like you would just are you just pretty much every day looking for opportunities, come up on the MLS with your realtors and
Yeah, exactly. I mean, once you know the templates, actually, to be real, I haven't been looking at like single family lots really at all right now. I've been really
Mhm.
chill and focused on getting the business operating and running properly, executing on what's in front of us. And then new lots do just come again through brokers and relationships. So I would say one of the big things that I've learned is, if you know what you want, just tell everybody. And humans
Mhm.
are like innately amazing, right? They want to help each other. The right humans. Some humans are just whatever. We forget about those people who are like
Mhm.
the people who have the I want to win and I want you to lose mentality. Whatever. Just get those people out of your life. But most people really do want to just innately help each other. So if you have something you want, like push it out into the universe, and it's just the law of attraction. It will come your way. So
Yeah, that's a good intro to the social media. So you and I connected because you're trying to do more with social media. What's the goal with that? Is just to let more people know what you're doing and connect with them so that creates more opportunities, or you wanting to help people get into this? Like what's the strategy there?
yeah, I mean, there's 2 components to it. I don't even exactly know what it's going to turn out to be, but I can see, and I learned, like, I wasn't on social media for 6 7 years. I was like, oh, it's a distraction, this that, focused on other stuff. And then I actually, a good friend of mine, his name's Daniel Kong, I met him at a little mastermind, and I had to go and I wanted to spend some money on education at the end of the year. I had some tax things I wanted to take care of,
Yeah.
so I'm like, hey, what do you recommend? He's like, I'm joining this mastermind, wealthy investors, what's called now, Ryan Pineda. I was like, I don't
Oh
even know.
yeah.
yeah, I was like, I don't even know who he is, but I trust Daniel Kong with everything, right? He's my good friend. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just pile the money into that. I'll join that mastermind class, paid 25 grand. And I went, like, I think that was like end of the year. And I went to the first event, and he's like, if you have a business and you don't have social media, you're an idiot. That was essentially what he said in a very
Yeah.
nice way. In like, but like, how could you not have social media if you have a business? It's free marketing, right? It's free marketing. And if you're not building your personal brand, then you're really not a business owner. You're really not, like, you're going to get left behind, right? Attention is the new oil. And if you are not trying to build and produce a personal brand, then you're just going to get left behind in the business world. And it just clicked for me. I was like, wow, that's a big aha moment. And so, we started in January, started really trying to execute and push on it and turn it into a business, right? Where I was like, is this going to take a lot of my time? No, figured out how to create it into a business, hired a marketing coordinator who helps. And then we have editors who edit the videos. It gets posted, the whole thing. Now we're starting to get it down. And so the goal is to just connect with as many people as we can, grow as much influence as we can, and be able to share everything that we've learned, because I think, like, the best education is real education, real life education, and we'll see where it leads, right? I do have dreams to create a really big momenticized brand, personal brand. Where it goes, we'll see. I think the universe will tell us over time, and we're just going to keep trying to connect with as many people as we can.
Yeah, the scale of it can lead to so many opportunities, but even locally, I found it seems like everybody is.
Are you muted?
Can
There
you hear
go.
me?
Now
I
you're
lost
back.
my sound. I don't know what just happened.
You're back.
Wow.
You're back, though.
Give me 1 second. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Test.
I can hear you.
I can't hear you now.
Hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You can't hear me?
Give me 1 second. Here we go. It all disconnected. All right, we're good.
Hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah. I don't know what happened. It just disconnected everything, my microphone, and switched to the computer. Well, we'll cut that out.
At least you know how to fix it, man. If that happened to me, we would be done. Podcast done. I can't. Yeah. I have some real serious technical difficulties.
Okay. Hopefully the team will cut this part out.
Even if they don't, it'll be funny.
Yeah, it will be funny. So back to what I was saying. It seems like so many people are doing social media, building the personal brands and putting out content. But when you really think about how many people it actually is, it's not a ton.
Yeah.
Or people that in real life, unless now that you're in these masterminds and everyone's doing it. But people in real life and in your market, there's probably not a ton of people in Bend, Oregon creating content about building mid-sized multifamily. So with the people it just becomes more omnipresent in their mind that's what Dirk does. You see an opportunity, connect with him. If like watching your story, following along, seeing what you're building, seeing the success, hearing about the failures, like I trust him. I want to invest in this next project. I'll give him money. So at the very least, it'll do that before you have 1 billion followers. Just the people you already know, it's going to help them understand better what you're doing and lead to opportunity there. But then, of course, you can grow, get in front of new audiences, meet new people, and that just builds. It builds to a scale that wasn't really possible before social media. So I think it's super important, and I was just curious. Yeah, when I started, I didn't really know why. I don't know why I'm going to record about the property management stuff I was doing and like the deal we bought, and I wish I did more of it now, because when I was 20, we bought a 48-unit apartment complex. I did all the management, all the renovations, everything. I made like 4-minute-long videos, the whole through the whole cycle of the deal. But yeah, so podcast content, reels. You said you do really well on Facebook. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how it just grows, right? It's like, I think what you said there is great, because you're able to stay front of mind. It's like it's the new resume, right? So like if somebody meets you up, it's the new resume. And so if you want to stay relevant, in my opinion, that's what I saw. I was like, when Ryan Pineda said that, I was like, he's so right. Like, I'm such an idiot. How have I not been doing this for the last 6 to 7 years? It's not a distraction. It's actually a huge tool. Now, I'll say one thing that it was Grant Cardone said it really well. He summed it up well. He's like, people say social media is this, that. He's like, well, are you a producer on social media or are you a consumer?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That defines the difference, right? Is like, are you just consuming? Then maybe it is a distraction. If you're sitting at work instead of producing what you should be producing and you're on social media, yeah, it's a distraction. But if you're producing on social media, connecting, giving, sharing, and learning, great, right? And so I think that there's that. It's today's personal resume. And then as far as like on Facebook, it's funny how things happen, right? It's like consistency, like anything, you gotta get a little bit better every day. And Facebook, we had a couple videos. We had one video go viral, a couple other ones do pretty good, and all of a sudden you go from like 150 followers to, I think we're tracking towards 45,000 followers now. So it just quickly stacked, and boom, we'll see what happens.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I loved hearing your story and just the advice, because I don't know anything about development, and I feel like it's the way to go at some point. I'm going to get into it. So hopefully it was valuable to anyone that's listening. Is there anything you kind of want to leave that we didn't cover, or?
Yeah. I mean, first, I want to thank you for your time, right? It's really cool to get this podcast. Thanks for bringing me on. I really appreciate it. And thanks to any of the listeners. If you guys want to come and follow along what we're doing, if you're interested in the ground up game at all, you can just find us at the Dirk Velde across all platforms. We do both short form and long form. We're getting better and better at our YouTube stuff, but you'll keep seeing us just try to get a little bit better. And, I would say the only other thing is, if you have big dreams, it takes big action as well. So make sure you stay focused on that and take the daily steps to make your dreams come to life.
Awesome. I'm trying to do better at the YouTube stuff as well. I just ordered a bunch of camera equipment, microphone, just came in last night. Nice. So I appreciate the time, Dirk. It was a very valuable podcast, hopefully entertaining. I was entertained. Anyone that listened this far, I appreciate you, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks.
Cool. See you, Tim.
Thanks for tuning into the Student of the Game podcast. If you listened all the way to the end, I would love your feedback. The best way to connect with me is to reach out through Instagram. Leaving a thumbs up or a review on whichever platform you're tuning in from will really help this podcast reach more people. So if you found it valuable at all I can ask is that you would do that for me. Thanks. Until next time.